Hello.
Ok, hello mọi người. Ờ, thì hiện nay mình sẽ có cái livestream để tám về Android và cái sự kiện Jetpack Compose vào tuần rồi. Thì tham gia hôm nay hiện tại có bạn Trình, Phát với lại Toàn là admin với mod của Android Caffeine. Thì chắc pass lại cho Toàn hỉ.
Hello các bạn. Hello. Hy vọng là các bạn đã ăn tối. Vì không ăn thì mình sẽ không có sức để nói đâu, không có sức để nghe đâu. Ok. Thì Jetpack Compose nó là một cái gì đó mà cũng không quá là xa lạ. Đối với các bạn mà đã có nghe ngóng một tí về cái trending gần đây từ Google thì thông thường thì các bạn sẽ khá là quen thuộc với cái việc là các bạn xây dựng ứng dụng Android dựa trên việc là view based manipulation, có nghĩa là các bạn sẽ sử dụng XML như là từ ngày đầu tiên Google ra, các bạn sẽ có file XML, các bạn sẽ declare cái view của nó như thế nào bằng cách là declare các cái component dưới dạng là XML component, XML tag. Sau đó các bạn link nó lại dưới nhau thành một cái file XML. Các bạn có thể sử dụng một vài dạng placeholder, dạng view component gì đó inject vào với cái tag include chẳng hạn. Và đấy là cái cách mà chúng ta so far chúng ta vẫn đang sử dụng. Tất nhiên là có một số bạn thì có một số cách gọi là creative hơn, chẳng hạn như là các bạn cố gắng build UI dựa trên code. Mình thấy có rất nhiều bạn sử dụng cái capability đó để có thể build được app Android, và mình thấy là nó cũng work. Và Jetpack Compose xuất hiện. Jetpack Compose xuất hiện thì nó là một cái gì đó mà đi theo cái trending gần đây mà chúng ta có thấy trong cộng đồng, đặc biệt là trong cộng đồng những người làm về phát triển ứng dụng di động. Và tiên phong thì chúng ta thấy có Flutter nha. Flutter thì từ ngày đầu tiên Flutter nó là định vị là sử dụng dạng declarative view UI, có nghĩa là thay vì các bạn sẽ hút cái view của mình vào và sử dụng code đó móc vào những cái view component và manipulate nó, thì các bạn sử dụng ngay code component, tức là các bạn declare UI dưới dạng code và khai báo là cái UI của bạn sẽ gồm những component nào, manipulate, hút data là như thế nào. Hello Enric, good evening.
Hey Fox.
Hello Tuan, hi Fat.
Yeah,
Nice to
amazing.
see you again.
Nice to see you.
You have dinner?
Hello. Not yet. I'll need to have dinner after our session.
Okay. So we were in the middle of conversation. So hello guys, you're watching this stream. We are switching from Vietnamese to English, and I hope you don't mind. But anyway, you have any questions, interaction, you can just use Vietnamese or English. We can speak English pretty fluent, and I believe that Enric is pretty much comfortable speaking Vietnamese, right, Enric?
Tôi kêu tiếng Việt.
Yeah, amazing. Okay, so we just like having a rewind on how's our folk like using like XML based methodologies to declare and to manipulate view in Android development. And then Jetpack Compose like just appear out of nowhere, and following the trends of the using the clarity UIs as the new way to constructing your application. And everybody's like go crazy on Flutter, right? It had been one of the most like pro technologies in the last in the last 2 years maybe. And then like people like just talking about why I love Flutter, and here because like clarity UI, and here now in Android you guys can have a like just like a similar and like way modern methodology using the clarity UI. And so we are here on to talk about like what is like how can you utilize, how can you like apply or transform your application in a very old view constructor into like the Clarity UI with support from Jetpack Compose, and especially when Jetpack Compose just hit a recent milestone on February. That is really the beta version of the Jetpack Compose, and now like beta version. Now you have a very stable API. We're just not talking about like how performance are optimized or some kind of like minor bug here and there, right? We just talk about how the API is finalized, and we can believe in the future that if you are about to try now this kind of application using Jetpack Compose, your API will be there. You don't have any breaking chance when you update your version to like final release candidate or the final official version 1.0 anything. Your application is still the same. So we're talking about beta version today and how it going to impact to us at the Android developer, right? So let's just start it. So Jai, share your experience with using Jetpack Compose. Let's get started with Trinh, right? You just have like we all know you have just present about Jetpack Compose like a couple of weeks ago, just before the Lunar New Year in the Android Cafe Speed, like the talk that is happening hosted at Lazada office. So can you share a bit about your journey to Jetpack Compose? What is your like amazing experience that you already have like with Jetpack Compose in your application?
Okay. So I first actually to beginning with the Clarity UI, I started to like jump on that boat when I first working with Flutter. So when I heard that Google will like have something called like Jetpack Compose, and they also like support the Clarity UI, I like immediately like give it a try. And the very first feeling is that I can actually build things faster, like much faster. So for example, like one very common component in Android development is like a list. Like basically, usually we build a list using a recycler view. Every Android developer should know about that. So in order to build even a very like simple list, we have to like declare a XML layout for the items. If you have multiple items, you have to like declare multiple layouts. Then we have to implement the adapter to decide it what to show the data, how to show the data for each every single items. And then we have to like create the view holder patterns. Like if we have multiple views, again we have to create multiple view holder classes. So like creating a list in Android using the normal way is not hard, but it takes time. So we have to like do a lot of like, we can call it now like a boilerplate code. But like with Jetpack Compose, we just like the development cost will be like reduced significantly. We can just like declare what we want on the screen, how we can gonna render the layout for the items, like pretty short. So then the Jetpack Compose will like handle the rendering part and optimization item of the rendering for ourselves. Then we only focus on like the defining what to show on the screen. So it's like basically reduce the time significantly, at least for me. So that's a very big plus point for me.
Thank you, Trinh. Thank you. So so far I was just like my perceptions from your experience is that you have a very good honeymoon like time with Jetpack Compose when you try to explore and like adapting Jetpack Compose into your application. So far like anything that you let's say not that extreme, but anything that you hate about Jetpack Compose and you wish that it were like implemented and provided at an alternative way, like anything from Jetpack Compose?
Yeah, of course, because like it just Jetpack Compose is like just a new kid in town, so we still have a lot of things to improve, right? So one of that thing is like the preview mode. So basically, you have the capability to preview the widget or the UI using Android Studio. But like since the last time I tried that, it doesn't work really like with high performance. So the preview is that, like, I can say it let me down. So usually I don't use the preview mode when working with Jetpack Compose. Instead, I preview it on the real device or emulators. I hope that can be improved much for later versions, and I believe that in the beta version is improved a lot, and it provides you some extra things like you can actually interact with the preview of the widget. So I believe it is a really good sign. So we have high hope.
Yeah, definitely we have room to improve here. So and I believe that from the release note and the recent Jetpack Compose announcement, there's something I catch, because in the release they are trying to improve the previews capability. So right now, if you update with the recent version of Jetpack Compose together with the update on Android Studio, maybe I'm not sure that it is in stable version channel release, yes, but Google claimed that these like preview things had been improved, and let's try it out to see if that is something that can help us at the product like at the productivity tool, so that we can be like more productivity in using like the preview features. I mean, like this is maybe one of the key selling point in using Clarity UI, right? So get back to it, like Enric, how about you? Like, what are your like honeymoon time with Jetpack Compose? Have you tried now in any your existing like application?
Yes, I've been using it in personal projects, not at my company, because my company doesn't use Jetpack Compose. I hope I can convince a few people. Do you know anybody else at my company that I can convince?
Yeah,
Anyway.
I can give you some contact after this call, but maybe in private chat. Don't let him know that I'm give you his contact, right?
Right. Yeah, I've been using it privately as much as you can develop private apps, but looks great. I think otherwise we will not be here, right? It seems to be the natural evolution of declarative UI. We had, I don't know if many of you remember, but we had in Kotlin Anko.
Yeah, the old guy. I mean, the old guy. Everybody were really impressed, and I really mentioned about that, like some so creative person at the beginning with the journey of Kotlin. They are proposing, like, even they build a UI library that you can like conducting your own app UI with code. I mean, that amazing.
Yeah, so let's see if I can share screen a bit and just show you around. But well, that it got deprecated in 2019, but it seems that it was essentially like an early philosophy of Jetpack Compose, right? So they were trying to follow the same sort of declarative UI, and they had a few other things, if you remember, and they facilitate a bit how to make things like Toast, or they had a lot of extension functions for sending SMS or these sort of things. Yeah, that it was really nice. I remember I was using actually Anko. Now it's deprecated, so you can't see any sample code. However, you can probably yeah, if you want to navigate through the different branches, see what they had before. Yeah, okay, then this is telling me that the goodbye doesn't exist, but that's fine. I don't want to read the goodbye file. Okay, neither is log from here. But I was using actually Anko in a productive project, and you can see that it's similar to the Compose philosophy, right? And that was amazing because working with XML is really hard in Android. I think also it makes a little bit difficult the job of working with different people in the same file, because you have this long XML tree structure, and it's hard to keep several people working on the same code base. But this is essentially just like working with code with UI on a programmatic way. So that was fantastic. And Swift UI has been also pushing the same declarative pattern for iOS. So it seems that this is going to be is going to move forward. It's interesting because Google has this policy of for them beta is sort of stable for other companies, right? The definition of Google when something is beta, it's that it's not going to change the API. There are not going to be breaking changes, so you can expect some stability. And now Jetpack Compose is beta, so I think we can expect stability from now on. And that's one of the things that companies and software teams are looking for, that things are not going to break in 2 months and you need to change them completely and rewrite what you've been doing. If you have to start now something from scratch, probably Compose makes more sense than using XML. I think the nice thing is that they're providing a migration and some tips. Let's see if I can share again my screen. Google is providing and working on providing a migration effort. So if you have your XML files and you would like to move into Jetpack, there is an official workshop from Google, which I think it's, where is this workshop from here? Or code lab from, migrating to Jetpack Compose. If you search, Jetpack Compose migration, you'll be able to access this workshop from here. And it's really nice. They go through a very basic sample of an app, what we have today in Android, like view models, live data, what XML screen, how do we start the migration, considerations, etc. So that's really nice that Google has been thinking of this. I think one of the problems that is still not quite solved there is the interoperability. So of course we have Compose, we have XML files, we want them to talk with each other. And it does not seem to be working in all the cases, especially from the side of XML to Compose. And this affects libraries, right? Because we rely heavily on having libraries. There is actually here also a chapter on interoperability on the documentation of Compose. You can see it's quite large, actually. So that means, I think that proves that Google is putting effort here, which is nice to know. But there are, because of the nature of the declarative programming, there are some things that are not available for this XML pattern. And I think it's not, they're not quite there yet. They probably, it's going to be a longer way until we can get rid of interoperability problems, or maybe not. Maybe Compose will just slowly start taking over, and at some point XML will not be there. But yeah, I think in general is I like almost everything. I have some concerns with interoperability for projects that are heavily based on XML, but this absolutely seems to be the default choice at the moment if we need to start any sort of UX.
Mm-hmm. Thank you for your sharing, Enric. And when we talk about when you make a comparison, like how the approach that is Google bringing up on the table for implementation, and in the way of taking advantage of features from Kotlin, for example, like you have the ability to using the DSL, right, itself to view the UI. And actually, I share the same observation with you when last year I share my experience on using domain-specific language, DSL AKA, and how Kotlin is supporting it. And I believe that recently FAQ already had a presentation as well with the DSL and features powered by Kotlin. And here we are catching a lot of the smart implementation using DSL features in Kotlin. Fact, can you share a little bit on your observation on how DSL in general and especially in Jetpack Compose being taken advantage and help to support a way that we can let's say make it as a developer be more happier in using the such syntax and implementation in Jetpack Compose.
Yeah. So it's just been about a while that we didn't see anything that is really high in the communities like this, right? So in the recent release, we have something like the unified unit testing. We have some more thing but it's been a while we don't see something like the Jetpack Compose. And one of the key features they provide is the DSL, which is a very, very, very good way we declare for the UI, especially for the composing UI framework like this. So let me share my screen. Okay. So this one is green. So let's get a very example for the DSL. So we have a guy who built a material dialog, which is very famous. And you can see in the tutorial, he declares some of the code of how to show the material dialog, right? So we have the XML, we have on the thing, on the parameter, on the line spacing, and on the properties of how we can declare messages on the button here. And you can see in the tutorial, it's very easy to use to onboarding for the new layout, for the new library without any additional tutorial, right? So the first thing you can see, this is the first benefits of using a DSL. You don't have to spend maybe one day to explain how the library is working, right? So it's just showing the code, and they will get and with the support by the IDE itself, you can explore all the features of this library. And the second thing, you can see here, DSL provide you a very clear way how you can declare for the UI. So let's say if you want to build a very complex of the UI with the hierarchy, you need to calculate for the state itself. But if DSL, you have to declare the final state, the exact state that you want to build. So let's say in this case, you want to build a dialog, you want to have all the property to be clear, you want to render this thing with HTML, you want to have a text with the color and things like that, you just have to declare. And another thing is, so in DSL is not always, the Jetpack Compose is the framework for building, for the composing for the UI itself is not really tied to any architectures or something regarding for the Android framework. So Google allow you to do anything that you want. You can play around, you can get your hand dirty with this. So with the Compose, regarding to the point that Enrique just mentioned about how we can migrate everything from the previous project, or maybe the building the project from scratch, you can see that Google allow you to freely to do it, especially for building things like this. So let's say migrate. Google is one of the most companies that famous for the backward compatibility. They provide a lot of things that have been supported maybe 5 or 10 years ago, right? So, but with the Jetpack Compose, really going to a different way. So let's say they are using the unbundled class, which is going to be developed in the futures and in the separate way to be not too tied to the Android framework. So with that, we can migrate the UI in a very different way. Now you can have, you can still using the XML code with your view, and your view can be declared. Your view can be declared in the composing code, and then you can have everything to be rendered on the phone. And one more thing I feel is very good for the Jetpack Compose, they provide features of preview, which is available for Arctic Fog, I believe, on the Android Studio. So with that, you don't have to wait for all the code to be compiled with the full application to be rendered on the Android Studio. You can have the preview on the right side. On the left side, you can just put anything that you want here, and then the preview and the appearance will be appear right away. And yeah, I think that really changed the look and the feel of how you code, how you're composing for the new UI. Yeah.
Thank you for your sharing, fact. And yeah, so let's say that one of the key features, I believe that when we talk about searchability, like I know, like people are rushing to use Flutter. Maybe one of the key features that Flutter like offering right now is they offer the live loading, right? The live loading and reloading. So whenever you are trying to implement something on the UI, and then right after that, just you click on save, and then just boom, everything is just available on your device, your emulator, so you can like have a very quick way to review and to feedback your implementation on the UI level. And I think that one of the key features that can help boost the productivities of any mobile developer here. So if we have a way, we can like improve the preview mode. on Jetpack. I believe that one that also like having to living more people coming in love with the Jetpack Compose. And talking about one of the things that you just mentioned is that not everybody have the chance to start everything from scratch, right? You don't want to rewrite your application for every 6 months, right? So on where you're working more of the time, like more of the cases here that you are starting out, experience something on your existing application. So having a way to support the interoperabilities between the old technology platform and the new like fancy technology like Jetpack Compose, and having them to interact together is super crucial for the successful guarantee on any new technology, right? So talking about that, I'm going to share my screen. Maybe we can review a couple of chains that is just offering in the recent release. I don't know. Let me just try to share my screen. Let me know if you are able to see my screen. You got it?
Not yet.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. Yes or no?
No, not yet.
No. Okay. Okay. It's on. It's online right now. It's on here. So one of the things I'm caring very much about that the ability to like to integrate the Jetpack Compose framework into our existing application without have to like rewrite the whole application or re-architect the whole application. So they offer like the integration with navigation, which is one of the very important component in the Jetpack ecosystem. And integrate with view model and light data, IX, especially IX. I mean, like everybody here, you have a lot of like legacy, right? So you guys working with IX Java, IX Android a lot, and then like having a way to integrate like without very much effort on re-architecturing or rewrite your application is very important for everyone to get welcome the new kid in the town on board, right? Paging and here the recent DI framework provided by Google, and on top of what we know, the old guys is Dagger 2, right? So let's say we haven't the chance to try out and it work with our existing application. This is very important to have these capability equipped with the new framework. And yeah, that pretty much like what is the capability that is get like injected into the recent version really in the beta. And talking about like Compose, and I think that one of the difficult point is that when you're migrating from the very old way, then you are working on the view-based programming model. You are having everything is declared as XML, right? And then you hook it, you manipulate based on the view IDs in your Java or Kotlin code. Then it is something that we used to work for years. I mean, like for years, from the very first beginning day, by Android, you know, like that is the only way that you can manipulate the view. And now you're working in a very like training way, right? You are working in the clarity UI. So you need to change, you need to shift your like mental model of like programming in Android. Rather than you are using the very old view base, you need to think about how you can construct your UI in your mental, right? In your mental mode, you need to declare everything. You need to break it down into component, and then you need to structure in a way that having everything like structuring and connecting together. So, question for Trinh. Let's say Trinh, how difficult for you to have a mental shift in this situation when you were like having like 5, 7, 8 years working on a very old-fashioned way Android. I mean, like the very standard Android way. Like how hard for you to change the thinking model here?
I mean, it's hard. Like honestly, it's hard because like I said, I first started working with declarative UI by working with Flutter, So not like Jetpack Compose. So with UI in Jetpack Compose is a composable function, which means that it doesn't return any object. But in Flutter, your UI component will be presented by a widget object. So like at the very first time I started with declarative UI, I didn't like observe the mindset. So in some cases, I need to do some to save the reference to the widget and access it directly. So it's something similar to like file view by ID in the normal way of like Android implementation. So like whenever you work with the declarative UI and you have to like catch or save the reference to the widget for later use, you have to like rethink again the way you do it, because it's not correct anymore. So the mindset of declarative UI is that you declare the UI for any point of time during the lifetime of the application. So you have to like think about the state, how to present the state on the UI. And I think one point of Jetpack Compose which is like really good is like the UI element in Jetpack Compose is a function, so there's no way that you can keep reference to it or try to modify the property, modify the padding, margin, or the color of the UI. So it forces you to to work with the declarative UI in a correct way. It doesn't give you a chance to be wrong. So that's one thing that I really like about the Jetpack Compose. And I think that you don't really need to wait until Jetpack Compose is super stable, then you can start working with declarative UI, because like I said, personally for me it's a hard shifting. It's not easy like in 1 or 2 hours and you can like completely change your thinking, your mindset about how to design, how to build a UI. You have to it takes time for you to realize from your mistake or like painful when you make a mistake. So I think right now is a really good time that Jetpack Compose already released a beta version, pretty stable. So I think you can just start it right now. Then you can like day by day, you realize about the mindset, about the thinking of like declarative UI. And when it got like super stable on production, then you can just like jump into and work with it like effectively.
I'll share your idea on like taking the shortcut, right? You don't necessarily like waiting until the point that everything is getting proven. Like of course there will be risk on like catching things early, but I mean like the reward of taking trust risk is something that you should be able to consider, right? So fact. There's a couple of questions right now, and for us to take a look at it. So for you as speaker, you can switch into the comment tab, and I would like to pick some questions from the comment flow. So fact here, maybe a question that you can start it first, like can we use Flutter to build Android widgets layout? Maybe that is one of the questions that we are talking about here. Let's just put it later. So yeah, here's I will come back with that question later. Promise, check me. You had my work. So the question from True Farm, right? Now that Jetpack Compose beta has been released, what will be Google approach to Flutter, right? So fact, what do you think about that? So you have Flutter right now, which is just they just declare some major change couple days, maybe yesterday or the day before, I don't remember. But now Flutter is like about to be fully support on both native development and for web development. I mean, like they even offer a demo website. I don't know, like Flutter Plasma something .dev, and then they demonstrate the amazing profit manipulation capability on that. So Flutter and Jetpack Compose, what do you think about they both?
So it's not really, I mean, Jetpack Compose and Flutter to be a very separate way, right? That is absolutely the two paths. So for Jetpack Compose, that is the composing UI, which is a tool to support for the Android developer to go faster, to be integrated to the Android code, to have everything to build on the view. But for Flutter, it sounds like an engine to help you to build the application now natively, just released yesterday for beta for the 2.0 version, right? So Android Flutter is something that really build the application that can run on the different platform, from the web, from the Android, from the iOS. So I cannot say which one is better because they are going to the separate way. But at the same time, we share that on Jetpack Compose and Flutter have the similar chain. When you use the DSL composing for UI, when you we have ability to declare for the UI, I don't think that we have just mentioned in the last 30 minutes. So for the Google team right now, as you can see, we have two dedicated teams that we have been development for the Flutter and Jetpack Compose. So for Jetpack Compose, they don't give any strong opinions on how you use it. They give you freely to use it. They give you experience. You get your hand dirty to use it, right? So, and you feedback for the team of Google, and they can enhance and they can hear you, and they have also have a open source page to give you to open the issue for that, so you can enhance for that community. At the same time, Flutter already releasing long after that, maybe 1 or 2 years ago, right? And they are now in a very, very different way. They are in a different level when they have one of the biggest community in the GitHub. So again, to the point, they are running in a very separate way. So we cannot have the very clear and strong opinion how to compare Ring for the both framework, right? So any additional point for that?
Thank you. Eric, what are your point of view on this matter? Like Google, they maintain two separate development track for both Flutter and Jetpack Compose, and the methodologies, and I mean like the way that they access the problem is very much similar. What do you think about this?
So yeah, it seems it's more of a political issue. I don't know if you folks are. I'm sharing my screen now, and you maybe folks are aware of the. Can you see my screen? Yeah. There was this post by Jake Wharton. You know, Jake Wharton is the this guy that has done all the libraries for Android. So chances are that you work every day with his code. And somebody asking the Android dev Reddit, why is Android pushing Flutter, Dart, and Kotlin at the same time? Because sometimes you might feel that those things can be like conflicting or following different paths. And it seems that there are a lot of politics at every single institution. So the Flutter team seems to be completely independent from the Android team. They don't really have anything else to do with each other. And from the Android side, like the Android team, the team that is working directly on Android, they recommend either Java or Kotlin or C++. They don't mention Flutter at all on their guidelines. It's never mentioned on the Google documentation as choice that you should be using for Android development. So what, and that's just a speculation. It seems that, you know, we know that with Flutter we can develop apps on Android, etc. But today actually was announced that in the Ubuntu account that Flutter now is going to be the default choice for developing Ubuntu apps. So it seems that Flutter, it's maybe the focus is not so much on the UI and UX, but it's tending to, or is gravitating towards becoming or focusing on the multi-platform aspect. So I think that's, or I speculate that's probably the direction that is taken. But yeah, so it's like from your personal level as a developer. So are you focusing on doing Android apps? Then I think it's clear that the choice for you should be to take focus on compose, because that's now is beta is going to be the recommended way of or focusing on UI probably as soon as it hits fully stable. Flutter, like all the web frameworks, I think it has its place. But I've been also on the other hand developing for Android since the first version, like 10 years or 11 years. And before there was Cordova, we had Ionic, we had other frameworks like Xamarin, now we have Flutter. So there is always a framework to the multi-platform, and they don't quite get out there and stay and remove the native development. So as I see, it's are you working with prototypes? Do you need to have Android and iOS running because you need to get investment and convince shareholders and or potential investors? And yeah, of course, Flutter is serving for that purpose. Are you a company that is developing the native apps because you should develop apps natively? Then Compose is going to be the choice. So I don't see them as conflicting as much as it seems. I think they're taking different ways, or they are going to be serving different purposes. But again, that's purely speculation, so I might be right or not.
Yeah, I do share some observation on the way that is Jetpack Compose technical approach on solving their own implementation, right? So there's some kind of like previous way to use like the Clarity UI. Maybe there's some framework before. I don't really remember the name, but the framework is coming from Facebook, and they were using some kind of like the Clarity UI approaches where you can write code to compose your UIs of your app. But the way is that they are using a middleware, I would say a middleware where your code written in this kind of framework will get in optimized and then be converted into the view-based ways to render. But here in Jetpack Compose, the approach is a little bit different. Is that your code is written in like the widget style, which is your UI component, right? Something like the list, the button, the label, something, right? Everything is that getting translated and getting drawn directly on a very fresh canvas. And when you talk about like you are redrawing everything, then you have a chance. You have a chance to optimize everything in the code level. So no matter what, how you construct your UI using Jetpack Compose code element, then there's a way that you can optimize this kind of like problem with high performance UI, right? Nested or complicated or kind of like too many calculation on the UI. They do it everything's in the background, and then the final thing is getting render, getting draw pixels by pixel on your screen is something that already optimized. So you mean like in the way that I do hear a lot of feedback from concern from developers who try now Jetpack Compose that if I'm using Jetpack Compose in the wrong way, I mean like you are trying to nest everything together. So in normal Android, you nest into too many layers, then you run into a high chance that your app is getting slow in like displaying and getting laggy effect, right? Too many things to do on the UI and renderings. But then Jetpack Compose, they have a way that is they redraw everything on the canvas, and then taking one step back from that kind of approach. What does it mean? If you can draw something on your Android canvas, and that means that you can like reuse that capability to redraw it onto any kind of presentation things. For example, like the native, right? For example, like the web on your browser. So that is considered a kind of different canvas. It's just like they just you may write your code and then they will take over the way that the kind of code getting drawn on these kind of like different platform like native app or the browser-based application things. So I think that they are taking a approach that is similar to a Flutter in a way that is Flutter come up with like getting shipped with their own rendering engine. They are not depend on the native offering from the platform or the native things on whatever platform you are building, but they offering their own rendering engine, and that was like a really important point to take into account when we are asking question like, is there any point in the future like we see the roadmap of development for Jetpack Compose going to be like cross the roadmap of Flutter, because they are taking the same approach right now in terms of technical implementation. Yeah. So we getting back with the some other question that we have in our discussion today. Let me just get back to maybe before I jump to the new question, I will get back to the question from Jack Nguyen that he already asked. The question about like, can we use Flutter to build Android widgets layout, or he mean Jetpack Compose layout? Well, I don't know. I don't really know. For if you are asking me about like using Flutter to build Android widgets, I mean like view-based Android widgets, a very old way of building Android app, then I think that is possible, because natively there is a way that is embedded like whatever Flutter had into the existing Android app. And of course, I think that is a very I mean like we are doing in the reverse order. So the approach is that if you are having a Flutter app and you want to access some kind of like native capabilities, native way of doing something, for example, like you maybe want to manage some kind of like peripheral device, or you want to manage some kind of like native API access, and then your Flutter application don't have that way to directly access to this capability, then you build an Android module that can help you to provide this capability, and then you build a channel that is having your Android native module to communicate back into the Flutter application, right? And you were putting everything in the reverse order here, like you are asking about like using Flutter. We have a like native Android app, and you want to embed it Flutter component into the Android app. Interesting. I were lucky enough to have in the same situation. I mean, like, yes, we can do it. Technically, we can do it, but the question is, should we do it or not? That is depend on your context, your business use case you want to achieve with this kind of implementation. Specifically with Jetpack Compose, I don't really know. I haven't not tried yet, but interesting. Let's say if we can do it. So this is an open question. So moving to the next question, I have from Nghĩa. So Nghĩa, our friend is asking questions regarding, would you recommend this framework? I mean, this framework is the Jetpack Compose framework for Android newbie or non-Android engineer who want to jump into Android for a change. So I would say yes, why not? I mean, like, if you are really new, right, for Android, and you don't know like which way is the best way for Android development, and you are like a fresh playground, so you can take a look at this approach. I mean, like Jetpack Compose is providing the similar capability that is view-based mechanism is having right now for like the mainstream of developer, right? They are out there, they are using, and they are Jetpack Compose just providing similar output if you're using it. So you may consider purely on the possibility, yes, you can do it. The question is the market value, right? We're talking about Android development. We're just considering like technical capability of a certain output if you're using this framework, right? But the question also for the newbie, for the people, like I said, like we don't usually start everything a new project from scratch, and maybe your approach on Jetpack Compose going to be fruitful in the future. But right now, if you are just know about Compose, and I think that it's gonna be really hard if you are working as an Android developer, you're working on some existing product, and they are still in the view-based mechanism, and it's gonna be really hard for you to catch up on the view page because you were just familiar with Jetpack Compose. So I would say take that example like as an input for considering if you want to choose, if you want to adopt any new framework. Is about the market where people need your skill rather than the technical question is that it is possible or it is something that we should do. We're not talking about we should do something rather than we're talking without the context of the market values of our skill set, right? So maybe you guys have any different input on the question from here? Enric, you have any input on this?
Regarding on whether jumping on it or not, I think it's not officially yet announced as Google, right? Like the default choice, but I think it's pretty much going to jump there. So considering the general evolution, again, it's a speculation, but thinking that we had before Ancon, now we're having a stable version on Jetpack Compose. Apple is pushing as well Swift UI. I would definitely say that if your project is fresh, you don't have dependencies, you can take the decisions. Jetpack Compose would be probably the choice. And as you mentioned, real life has a lot of constraints, companies, co-workers, code base, budget, etc. And that's something that you can only answer by yourself by taking all of them in a pot, in a melting pot, and see what's the conclusion coming out from there. I personally feel very positive about that. I think it's a framework that it's having a clear evolution. It could be like the coroutines as well when they started. I think it was very clear that at some point they would be recommended by Google to be the asynchronous solution for Android. There are libraries appearing with extension functions, which now are very easy to do, right? Because the Compose is declaratively programmed on a file, so you can create very easily extension functions. With the XML was a little bit more complex, etc. So yeah, it brings more benefits than problems. In fact, the problem that it brings is that you still need to interact with XML, which is not optimal. But that's not really a flaw in the design of Compose itself.
Yeah, thank you for your sharing, Enric. So, Fact, what do you think about that? I mean, like this is kind of like open-end question, and you were you were working at a teaching assistant, right, in a very famous coding school in Vietnam, in Ho Chi Minh City specifically. So, if you are acting as the teaching assistant and you are giving the career advice for any newbie that come in and seeking for your advice for their new and fresh journey on Android development, what would be your advice on this point?
Career advice would be too big for this. But I mean, the question is why not? Because if you know nothing about Android framework, or maybe you just new by, and there will be a lot of things that you are tied with the Android framework. You have no dependency, so take it with your high risk, right? So just adding some more feedback on this question. So the way, the principle of how we're using composing UI, in particularly we have Redux and we have from the Facebook, right? So the way we migrate, so let's say you are the web developer, this is not new, but probably you have known this one before, right? So applying for the old school, old-fashioned framework from different library, let's say Redux, to a new Hive, a new Android version. You really want to be a mobile engineer, and without any node dependency, without anything, and then you can just get started, get your hand dirty, and get to know about it. Just one risk that you may have to take, because this one is still beta, and the community is not really big, right? We don't have really big market capitalization or anything that we want to say, right? So if you have found something, if you found issue, and then you have to write back, you have to open the new issues on GitHub and get waiting for the feedback from Android developer, or maybe from some people from Google, and then it's not really nice to have to get things done, right? So that is my feedback on this. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Pat. That's something that we should consider as well, right? You are approaching a new framework, and then there's a high chance that you run into some problem, and you can't find an answers for your question on Stack Overflow, and then that is totally new, and you are like, I don't know, like want to kill yourself. Why you are obviously why you should choose this technology, right? So let's approach with our very last question in our discussion today from Trần Đại Nhân. Our guys are having a question on: can we create a custom view using Jetpack Compose and use it in XML5, compile two-way declare UI? So Trần, can you have to address this question with your experience on Jetpack Compose?
Okay, so Young is asking about the ability that we can't interrupt, which is the ability that we can use both Jetpack Compose and XML in XML file like at the same time. So the answer is yes. And can you guys see my screen? No, right?
Not yet. Maybe on the way.
I forgot to grant the permission, but
you
like
don't need to. You don't need to grant the permission if you are choosing sharing only Android one Chrome tab. You are sharing a Chrome screen or anything else?
Share screen. Chrome tab should be fine.
Yeah, Chrome tab.
Otherwise, you can put a mirror in front of the screen.
Okay.
Very creative way.
You guys saw the screen, right?
Yeah, we can see.
Okay, so in order to use Jetpack Compose view within XML layout, you just need to declare this compose view, and in your Java Kotlin code, you can just like find that view and set the content, which is a composable function. Okay, it's one side, and the other side that if you want to use a custom view from Android, and you use it in a compose view, it is possible also. Like we have one thing called Android view, and you can just simply try to like instantiate the Android view inside this code block, and then you can use the Android view within Jetpack Compose. So it's support for both sides. So I think you guys don't need to worry about that.
Amazing interop. That is also a very important point when we just mentioned in the very early in this discussion, is that is the interoperabilities when using your new fancy framework with your old legacy code base, right? It is important not just like shoot into your output, which is the new plain tool, right? So I think that is pretty much on the question. The other question was the comparison with encode, like Jetpack Compose and encode. I can take it quickly that encode getting deprecated. So sadly, Jetpack Compose is much better because it has been a feature, have a future waiting for it. But now Jetpack encode is not. Encode is dead right now. So Jetpack Compose obviously is much better. So I think that was pretty much our discussion regarding the new announcement in Jetpack Compose beta milestone. And thank you your time for joining the discussion today. You on Fancy Speaker, and thank you for our viewer. We have a very good time like discussing and receiving questions from you guys, and we are looking forward to hosting new events just like this, because we really love the offline event when we have a chance to interact, to talk with you guys in person. But sadly, the situation of the COVID is still not getting better here, so we will try to find an alternative way to interact and getting like some kind of like talking and discussion and like interacting with you guys via virtual platform like this. And do share with us your experience with this kind of live format after this, so that we can have a better way to like connecting and to host the next coming event. So thank you so much again, and enjoy your evening. Goodbye, and see you next time.
Thank you.
Happy coding.
Bye bye.